helping chefs in your organization with creative food presentation and plating. 3D food printing can take your customer experience beyond expectations. Today we're going to show you Sepulveda. We're going to demonstrate how you can have these offerings and they can be replicated efficiently and sustainable, and also in this day of COVID to be less food handling and food safety.
What 3D food printing can do in a restaurant environment or for a caterer, even what we are doing with hospitals, why it may make sense for your business and why it's going to help give a better experience to your customers. So what you see on the screen right now is a number of cases in which 3D food printing is being used. So it's being used for catering events, with VIP guests for special occasions, with kids, both for education and for kids clubs. It's also being used in restaurants. Normally it's better application in high-end restaurants, but it doesn't exclude any kind of shop or environment. And it can be also used in room dining experience. Other than that, we have found that our customers find it interesting to give special moments, wow effect in other environments like corner cafes in supermarkets or in convenience stores and candy stores. So it's a number of situations in which 3D food printing can become a helpful tool and help have your guests or your customers have a unique experience, something that they will remember and they will probably share with their friends and families. What is 3D printing applied to food? So when we put together printing and food, people think that this is a bit weird, that we are not using proper food. We are using something that is specially made for the printer and is not real food. It's something fake, taste is not going to be good. But at the end of the day, the technology to emulate what happens in a food factory only reduced to a kitchen factor. So if you look at the picture, what you have in a food factory, what's going on is that you take the ingredients, you put the food through some processes, you end up having, in this case, cookies, but could be pizzas, could be pasta, could be whatever product you may imagine. And then this is packaged and sold in the supermarket. So we are using exactly the same kind of process and technology reduced to a kitchen factor. For home use, this is called 3D printing, but it's nothing different from the technology you can see. So essentially, if you are purchasing anything from a supermarket, you are already eating 3D printed food, although nobody calls it that. What you see now is what happens when you apply this technology or this process to food in a kitchen appliance, in something that is the size of an oven. You see that the result can be customized, and the result is not only the shape, it's also the texture, the flavor, the kind of nutrients you have inside the food. So imagine you want to do something that is gluten-free, sugar-free, you want to do something that is especially made for elderly people. All these can be customized, prepared in the moment of consumption, and served directly to the guests, to the customers. This technology is just another tool in your portfolio of tools in your kitchen, but pushes your imagination towards things that probably you couldn't think of before because simply they weren't possible to do by hand. How do you use a device like a food printer? What's the process? How can you put ingredients inside and then get the dish out of it? You have to put the ingredients in containers, and those containers is what you see on screen. The ones we use are stainless steel, food grade, food safe, and you can decide what you put inside. So it's not something that we are going to provide you. You are going to be using your own ingredients. Probably you are going to be using exactly the same ingredients you use today. The only thing that is you can use them in a printer. And you can have different textures. It's not always a paste, it's not a puree you have to use. You can use things that have chunks, that have solid chunks. And it all depends on the nozzle size you are going to decide to use. Of course, the thinner the nozzle, the more detail you can have. But the thicker the nozzle, also you can have more chunkiness and can have a faster printing speed. So that's something you decide. And depending on what you have in mind, you are going to have different results. But at the end of the day, it's you using the tool who decide. This is not replacing a chef. This is not replacing a cook, but allowing them to create new things. In our case, also, we have on every capsule, on every container, an NFC chip tag that allows us to understand what's inside the capsule. If it's something provided by a food brand, something you don't want to create yourself. And in this case, we can also tap into databases and share what are the nutritional facts of this food, what kind of food pairing you could be doing. Also, let you know expiration dates and other information you might find useful. So this all, of course, is something you decide at the end. I'm going to use my own ingredients or not. I want to have a productivity factor, and maybe I want to have a third party provide me with the food ingredients on pre-filled containers. That's also an option. The variety of dishes or experiences you can create is up to you. You can do things that are quite shocking, let's say, or more normal things. You can go from something you would do on a daily basis to high-end experience, and even you can give every guest a personalized dish. So you don't have to be providing everybody with the same experience. You don't have to be providing every guest the same dish, but you could be creating that for everybody, something special, something for the moment. You could be applying different variations. You are seeing some dishes we have created for some people. In some other cases, those are dishes that have been created by chefs. And of course, you can notice that because the ones that have been prepared or designed by a chef normally are much better looking and provide a better experience. But at the end of the day, the device is a connected device. We have a cloud system. You can use the recipes that are already in the system. You can create your own and you can share them with other people if this is what you want to do. This connectivity and way you would interface with the food, this is unique to this kind of tools. This is not something you can find today in a microwave oven or on an oven. So this is much more interactive tool. But at the same time, you don't need to be an engineer. You don't need to be a designer. Imagine you want to create a design. You have different ways to translate that idea into a reality in the food printer. You can just upload a picture, a JPEG file. You can upload a 3D model. You can draw something on a paper, show it to the camera that is embedded in the device. You can scan an object inside the device. You can type a text. So there are a number of tools that come together with the software that allows you to create things in a few moments. Besides the ingredients you are used to work with, you can also change the formulation of those ingredients without altering the nutritional value, the taste, and the experience, but you can create things that are unique. So what you see on the screen now is things we have created with pasta. So you can see the shape on the left side is plain pasta, but it's something that if you want to do it by hand, probably is not going to be possible, not even with a mold. On the right side, you can see ravioli in the shape of Garfield, and those are filled with whatever you want. In this case, it was meat, but can be whatever you want. So those, of course, are shapes you can recognize, but you can apply these to every single food you can imagine. So there is a number of things you can achieve with the pasta in this case, but you can have also gummy things. You can have vegan equivalent to meat products. You can have whatever you think of. Another thing that is quite relevant for us when we talk about food printing, and this is something that has been since the very beginning of the company, is we are working towards lowering food waste. We are doing that both in the production of food, part of the chain, and also on consumption. On consumption, of course, you can understand that you can create only the portions you need, no more. So imagine you have a bakery kind of business. You don't need to throw away so many bread parts every day because you have to have the stock available until the last minute of the day. So you can create exactly the bread you are being asked for, your customers want to have. But also what you see on the screen has been created by the fishing industry in Iceland. So they are taking all these scraps of the fish, things that cannot be served because they are not nice looking. Same thing happens with fruits and vegetables. And they are using them to create new ingredients and create new food. So that means that food waste is reduced. By captures can be also leveraged. Producers have an additional source of revenue. ROI is increased for every party in the chain. And of course, what we are trying to achieve with that is having a more sustainable food chain in our businesses. Some of you may think this is quite new. This is something that is starting now. But as you can see on screen, there is people using food printing technology associated with food in many countries in the world. Of course, Northern Hemisphere is where there is more concentration of those users, but you can see different applications and user profile in different countries. The US is probably the biggest market, but Asia is catching up, is growing fast, and they are trying to engage with their audience and having a differentiated factor by using food printing as part of their offering. What you see on screen right now is an example of things that are happening in Asia. So this is, I would say, a simple use of 3D food printing. They are printing in a restaurant in the dessert corner. It's a buffet-like style. They are printing with chocolate on top of crepes. Those designs can be decided by the restaurant, but could also be by the user themselves, so they can have a unique experience. And of course, this is quite amazing for the guests, and this is intended to drive more traffic into the restaurant, as this is probably going to be shared with other people on Instagram. But this is just one of the use cases. There are many, of course. Another use case, another environment in which 3D food printing is being used is with kids. So you can see that kids like to interact with the device. They are very familiar with using a smartphone. So they get started with food printing very fast. They understand the logic behind it. For smaller kids, they like to draw something on a paper, show it to the camera, and just get going. Grown-up kids, they like to experiment with the user interface. Of course, due to COVID now, sharing a screen and many people touching it is not exactly ideal, but you can use the printer from any smart device you have. So it can be used from a smartphone or a tablet or a laptop, and it can be, of course, your guest's smartphone or tablet. So in fact, it makes the physical interaction with the device non-existent or minimal. The only thing that you have to take care of is load the ingredients in the device and then take the plate out once finished. For kids, it's another toy. For the kitchens, is a tool. So it depends very much on who's using it. This picture, by the way, is been taken in one of the Sustec Kitchen events in the USA. Sustec Kitchen is a company that is run by Randy Zuckerberg, which you may know by name. Those are intended to attract kids and families and give them education around food and technology as well. Another use case that is probably more useful for caterers than for restaurants is food that is intended to be given to people in the hospital or elderly care centers. So what you see is food that is created using natural ingredients, and it mimics normal food, but it has the texture and the nutritional content that people on a certain diet or having dysphagia problems can have. As part of the COVID crisis we are going through now, dysphagia has been already identified and described as one of the symptoms that people had. People that go to the hospital, more than 50% of them are having these swallowing problems. Of course, this is not something that is going to stick, and this is only going to be lasting for 1-2 months, but the experience for them is quite different if you can offer them this kind of plating and this kind of presentation. You can also do quite, let's say, normal food. So what you see on the screen is Doritos, nachos kind of food. This is made with basic flour, water, oil, salt, and whatever you want to put in them. You can make them in any shape. Those take seconds to print, each one, and you can customize them the way you want. And this is made in the moment. You want to provide them to your guests. You want to serve them. And of course, the experience is very different from something that comes from a supermarket. It doesn't mean that in the kitchen you cannot do that by hand, but if you want to do something that is prepared for this special guest, you can do that as well. For unique occasions, you can see this kind of hearts. This is a sweet dish, a sweet preparation. Something very simple to do with the device is 2 hearts that are interlaced. Also, it's taking only a minute or 2 to print. Then you can plate it the way you want. Higher end dishes. What you see on the left side is a dish that is prepared by the 2 Michelin star chef Davide Oldani. It's an edible plant pot. So the pot itself is made of sweet polenta, and the inside you have ricotta with chocolate, which is like the soil, the earth. And then part of the plant is made of potato, and then you have the edible flowers. On the right side, you have red pepper, and this is a different way to serve a snack. And this is super fast also to create with a printer. As mentioned since the beginning, printing is part of the tools you can have in your kitchen, but it doesn't have to be the last step in the process. So as chefs or as someone preparing dishes for your guests, you know that there is always something that you can have manually added. On the left side, the edible flowers. Going beyond what printing can do for you, personalized user interface, so you can make this match to your brand, to your restaurant. You can have unique interface that is prepared for your application. So if you want to do cookie decoration in the coffee corner, then you can have something very simple. You don't need to offer all the options to your guests or even to the people in your staff interfacing with the device. So you can have something that narrows the options down, make it even simpler, and doesn't allow the user, whoever it is, the customer or the staff, to play with the device beyond the use case you envision. It's also unique is that you can recognize if you put something inside. So in this case, cookie decoration example, what the cameras inside do is to find the cookies, and then automatically you can position your designs on top of them. In this case, what you see is something to prove the concept, but you can have the design you want in the material you want, different design in different cookies. This allows you to not having to worry about if the object is exactly positioned in a certain place inside the device, but you go faster, just throw them inside and let the device do the work for you. So this is something that has been quite in demand for a long time. This is already something you can do today in these food printers. Another use case, which is related to the previous one, is full scan with an object. So you saw a teapot, the device can scan the teapot or whatever object you want, export the model if you want to work with it, or you can try to print it afterwards. You have to take into consideration that when you are printing with food, gravity is a constraint. So you have to make sure that the ingredients you are using are going to hold the shape. And at the same time, just making sure that you are not going to be printing on the air because it's going to collapse and it's going to fall down. But you have this feature that can be applied to this kind of objects, but also can be applied to your plates. For example, imagine you have certain plates with certain shape that are unique to your restaurant, or simply they are not flat. So you would scan the plate once, and the next time that the device recognizes that you put a plate on top of it, you can print using your plate, even if this plate is not completely flat. That allows you to have the capability of printing on your own plates, not having to move whatever you print from the silicone mat or our glass plate to your plates, but to use them directly. So it saves time and it also minimizes the chances of error. Another thing you can do is interact through APIs and through JavaScript. You can allow kids, for example, to create shapes from mathematical formulas. What you see here is an hexagon that is printed with different rotations and different radius. If you want to do that by drawing it or creating a model, it's time consuming, but sometimes it makes sense to make this kind of scripting. This is more for education for kids, but it's something also that may help you introduce your brand and your food to these kind of customers. Similar to the cookie case, you can print on pancakes, on whole cakes. Essentially, you can print on any object you want. This is quite fast. You can do that on any surface or on any object you would like to decorate. Food printing has some advantages over other technologies like molding food and creating the mold and having the food prepared that way. One of the main differences is that you don't have to freeze the model after you put that in the mold. It saves you a step. You can create unique designs every time you print. Also, something that is unique is that you can have different ingredients in different parts of the design. imagine chocolate with different colors. So this is something that cannot be done easily with a mold.
Other things I wanted to point out, a lot of the chefs and organizations have been asking me about allergens because in addition, they have to make sure certain foods obviously don't have certain ingredients. So the opportunity of using Foodini for just certain products, maybe a quiche that doesn't have dairy in it, you would know that those products are used for your certain clientele. The other thing is when you have the opportunity to have the ability to produce food for dysphagia, you also have the ability to do more family things. So, for example, if you have people that have elderly family members or other family members that have a challenge, this is another buy-in to your restaurant, catering, and also universities, a lot of times offering that. The thing that came up to me also, which was stated, was about the chips. A lot of times you need to do some kind of specialty chips, whether it's gluten-free, and it gives you the ability to do that to the gluten-free. One of the things you said, Emilio, which came to me as a restaurateur, is the logo. Having your logos on things or making it fun. In this day and age, you can even do something with a mask. It's almost as good as your creative and imagination. And the templates can be set up. Once the templates are set up, if you have a chef that wants this idea and the templates are set up, it's not like someone of that skill level has to watch it. It's set up. Foodini is a tool that will allow these things to be produced in a very timely manner and efficient manner and less handling. If you had to produce that with your hands and constantly touch them and then transfer them, obviously there's more contact. And in this age, we're trying to minimize contact, more efficiencies, and still give the wow experience.